Welcome, Jake and Simon Hill, stars of the British Touring Car Championship. Thank you both so very much for coming on the show and getting involved. But how are you both doing?
Yeah, good. I'm good, thank you, Louis. It's thanks for having me. It's good. We just can't wait to get going now. I think it's been an even longer winter, I guess, because we've been pushed back again for the start of the season, but not too much longer to wait now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we're all getting pretty excited about it, Louis. I think, as Jake said, it's good that that the organisers have gone the route they have to move the calendar back a little bit to make sure that we've got a good chance of getting some spectators in as early as possible, because it's been very strange. I think Jake will agree, it's been like almost like being at a test day for a touring car meeting last year, which is really, really weird. We're so used to having not just the fantastic BTCC Tifosi, even that crazy Jeff Army lot, but also for us as in terms of the team side of things, we've always had an awful lot of our partners and guests, sponsors, all these kind of people, friends and family as well, to make sure that we look after. And usually there's some hospitality going on, and there's things like grid walks and garage tours, which I get involved with, showing people around what's going on, because Jake and the other drivers are always a bit busy doing other stuff. But invariably we get him all involved in that. So it's been very odd, very strange. I think, nobody could even imagine the idea of having a quiet touring car meeting, let alone one quite as quiet as we've had. But I think everybody's just really raring to go and seeing it back to its glorious self.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got the new season, fast approaching. What do you guys most look forward to with the new season coming up so soon?
Oh, I'll start. Well, a start to a new season is always exciting. It's lots of drivers swapping around, new cars, new teams perhaps, and so that's always great to see. But for me personally, it's the challenge of a new car for me in the Ford Focus ST. And we have amalgamating teams between AMG tuning and now Motorbase. So we are Motorbase Performance now. And obviously I'm driving for the MB Motorsport side of the garage. So that bit remains the same for me. But yeah, the team and the car, very different. So looking forward to, really getting into grips with the team and especially with the car, and obviously trying to pursue that championship challenge.
Yeah, and for me, I think much like Jake says, it's going to be really exciting to see the level of performance that the Ford Focus ST has for this year. There's been quite a lot of work that's gone on behind the scenes between the existing crew at Motorbase, James Mundy, who's in charge of the technical side of things last year, and again this year working with Jake's engineer Craig Pawley and a couple of the other existing engineers to come up with some evolutions. And even in the one test day that Jake had at Brands a couple of weeks ago, they tried some comparisons between last year's car and the setup that we were familiar with in the Honda Civic Type R FK2 that Jake obviously raced last year. So it's going to be really, really interesting. There's all kinds of possibilities with this car. I think it's still only a year old in terms of its development, and I think we all saw last year in touring cars just how much the new generation of cars, as in the sort of 2020 cars, had moved on from the previous cars. So that the Focus, the Accelerate car as well in the Hyundai, other cars that are relatively new, the BMW, Toyota are still quite new. So all of that stuff is all of those elements rather are going to be really key to see who can and get that extra bit, and plus some other new cars coming online this year as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you guys mentioned testing you out at Brands Hatch in the new Ford. That must have been great to be out for the first time this season in a British touring car.
Yeah, it was really cool. Nice, so nice to just be out again. But be out again in a British touring car, as you say. It was, slightly different experience. There's lots to learn with the new car for me, and lots to get my head around for exactly how Motorbase run things and what I'm used to. And obviously just getting down to the nitty gritty of, okay, what do I need to do to make this car work at its highest level? And I think there is, as my dad has mentioned, there's quite a lot of untapped potential with the Ford Focus. They were very rushed. I think it's fair to say at the beginning of last year to just get the car on the grid. They didn't do much testing, and therefore they didn't do a lot of investigating with the setup, which is fair enough. At the end of the day, the priority is to race it. Whereas this year there's been a very intense testing program for the other guys, at least in the team. And yeah, they're just learning, and there's lots of different things they're trying, which is good. So hopefully we'll see some more of that untapped potential for this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously you're staying with MB Motorsport. It must have been nice, last year to for both of you to be confirmed that you're coming back for this season, definitely. With MB Motorsport, obviously new car, which is very exciting, but it must have been nice to know you're coming back this season.
It was, it was the first time in a very long time that I've had my season signed up so early. I managed to sign my contract for 21. We actually signed it at Snetterton in 2020 season, so around before the end, and yeah, it was fantastic. I think I got off the podium at Snetterton, and Sean Hollandby said, "Right, let's do it." So it was really good to get it done so early, and yeah, it just gives you a bit of confidence, especially with everything that's happening with COVID, etc., to know that you're coming into another year of British Touring Cars, pretty safe, as it were. So that was a really nice, relaxing feeling, I think, for both me and my dad, because up until now, or up until probably 2020, it was, you just never knew whether we were going to be on the grid or not. So it was fantastic to get that done so early and just have a nice, chilled out Christmas, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're all super happy for you. Obviously, all the best of luck for this season. I'll hand it over to Simon now. Where did racing begin for you, really?
It was an interesting one with me. There wasn't really anyone in the family, on my side of the family, that was really into motor racing. My granddad, once upon a time back before the war, used to race speedway in London, and there were some tracks in places like Wimbledon and White City and places like that are sadly, most of them are long gone now, but it was hugely popular. And so I think he was the one in the family that had some sort of motorsport, bug. But as a little kid, it was just cars, just toy cars, and you're playing with little cars like most little boys do probably. And then we moved from London down to Kent, and we moved to a little village called Ainsford, who anybody who knows the area around Brands Hatch will know it's kind of more or less the next village down the hill as you come out of Brands Hatch. And I could hear the cars going round in a million years ago when I was a little kid, and they still had Formula One there. That's how long ago it was. And I just badgered my mum. I just wanted to go and watch. And fortunately, a friend of hers was going out with the racing driver, a guy called Val Musetti. How's that for a great name? He raced in Formula Atlantic in the mid-70s. And we got tickets. It was a lot easier to get tickets then than it is now. And along we went. I think I was 8 at the time. And I was lucky enough to sit in the car. And you could probably relate to this, Louis, because I know you've been a big motorsport fan since you were probably about the same age, that it really just sparks your excitement and your interest. And it's like, this is super cool. This is something I'm really excited and passionate about. And I said to my mum, I want to be a racing driver one day. And she sort of kind of patted me on the head and said, yeah, of course you do. You want to be a fireman or a footballer or spaceman or all the other things that kids often want to be. But yeah, I just sort of get more and more passionate about it. And eventually, when I started racing, you had to have your driving license in the 80s when I started. So it's not like now is obviously junior racing. Like Jake started in Jeanette Juniors at 14, and obviously there's a lot of other junior racing that you can start at a similar age, and let alone karting even younger than that. And so I managed to use a little bit of money that I got for a birthday present to go to race school. And that was that. And then from there onwards, I just was always trying to find budgets and managed to work hard and got started in Formula Ford and then moved up into other things in Formula Renault, and I raced in OFL, excuse me, and then ended up doing sports cars. So just up the road from where you are, I know you're a Norfolk boy, aren't you? So up at the Lotus factory at Hethel, was the last time I was racing full time. I raced in the Lotus Sport Lease Series. And a funny little link with Jake actually is that Jake's racing a lot of historics now, as you might know. And just last weekend on Good Friday, was racing at Donington in a fantastic 1973 Chevron that would have raced at Le Mans, I think, back in the period, driven by John Watson, Formula One driver, obviously, of the day. And the team that ran the historics is a team called John Danby Racing. And John's background is that he originally was one of the engineers at Lotus, and he was my engineer when I was racing in 20 odd years ago. And now he's got Jake doing all the historic stuff. So, and I think Jake was just grew up around it. I think if you ask Jake his earliest memory, it's probably sitting on my lap when I was racing Renault Spiders and driving around the paddocks. About right, isn't it, Jake? I think
that is pretty much my first memory of it. Thinking back, it's the Spider era that you were racing, Dad. I think that was the first time I can properly remember it. But it's cool. You know, it's just nice. You know, thinking back to all those memories and where it all started. And as you say, it's nice to be driving for John now in historics with that connection you've had with him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, the historic racing looks amazing. Also, we loved watching you at Goodwood at the end of last year. You know, it must be amazing to drive all these, you know, fantastic historic cars.
It is, Louis. You know, I mean, for me personally, it's probably an unpopular opinion, but I do prefer driving, you know, the historics and older cars than the modern touring car. You know, the modern touring car is fantastic, and the championship is obviously unreal. It's a brilliant spectacle, and I love being a part of it all. But as a pure enjoyment factor, you know, going driving just because it's fun and you enjoy it, nothing beats jumping in an old Le Mans car or even that Calsonic Skyline at Goodwood, because ultimately, you know, they're cars that I grew up watching. And so I'm getting the chance now to drive them. You know, I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s as a kid. And those were the cars that, you know, I watched and I just fell in love with. So getting the chance to drive those now, that's probably what makes it more exciting for me. Whereas, you know, for you're probably 10 years younger than me. You know, your age group of cars that you've grown up watching, you know, you'd like to drive those when you can, you know. So it's just how the eras come about. And, you know, for me, I think the 90s was such a great period of motorsport. And, you know, I'm getting the chance to drive some pretty awesome cars from that era. But likewise, you know, the old Mustangs, Alans, the Chevron that I raced at Masters at the weekend. God, they're so good. You know, I just love driving them so much. And it's something to really get excited about.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. Now, obviously, you've both got plenty of racing experience, but who would you say is faster out of the two of you?
We haven't got a time machine, Jake. If we could go back to 27 years ago, maybe I might have a chance.
We actually get asked this a lot, don't we, Dad? You know, which one was faster? And Dad always says me, but I'm not so sure. You know, I don't think Dad had the chances that I've had, but that is thanks to my dad. You know, I mean, Dad didn't have anyone supporting him like I've got with my dad. So, you know, I'm very lucky in that instance. You know, I think if Dad had the same opportunities I've had, then maybe it'd be a different story. But you know, maybe I'd be looking at a Le Mans winner or whatever right now. But you know, it's good, and you know, I'm very proud of everything Dad did, and hopefully we'll get the chance to drive together before it's too late.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was going to ask, is there any chance, you know, Simon could come and do British touring cars in the future?
I don't think that's an option, to be fair, Louis. We did jokingly say that obviously with most of the teams, as I'm sure you know, they do a shakedown before each event.
Yeah.
Where the car gets taken to usually a runway somewhere to be driven up and down just to check everything's working. And Jake said to me, we did a shakedown, or Jake did a shakedown a little while ago, and he said, oh, maybe one day when we're doing shakedown, if I'm not available, maybe you could drive it, just to check the car for me. So I think that's probably the closest I'm going to get to drive, well, at least driving a touring car. So I've driven one. But yeah, for me, honestly, it was, I had a great time. Like, anyone who's ever raced cars, I'm sure would say the same thing. It's the buzz that you get from it of not only just driving the cars, but the competition side is incredible. And when you have a great day, when you have a good day, it's the highest high. When you have a bad day, it's the lowest low. But I get so much enjoyment out of Jake's career. It's been such a lot of work that we've all had to put in, not just myself and Jake, but lots of fantastic people that have been there supporting him since he started in a little bit of karting. Only did a bit of karting, but the Genetti Junior side of things, and then moving up to the other formula and eventually obviously into touring cars without their continued support and belief in him as much as, obviously I believe in him. He's my son, so I'm very proud and I do everything I can to help. But to have some of the other people, Jake mentioned Sean Hollenby is one of them. He's been around. He's been a friend of mine for 20 plus years. He's a very good racing driver. And funny, he was racing actually on Friday at the same day as Jake at Donington in his dad's old March Formula, what was a Formula Atlantic, now is a Formula 3 car. So Sean, a gentleman called John Miskin, there's loads of brilliant people, and without their continued support, and now we've got amazing people like Mark Blundell and his team at MB Motorsport, Alex Watts and the rest of the guys, plus of course the motor-based side, people like Pete Osborne, that are all very much on our side and helping make it happen. And in a very long-winded roundabout way, the answer to that is no, I probably won't drive a touring car unless it's a shakedown. But there is a chance, it's a slim chance, that one of the other guys that Jake does his historic with, he mentioned the Mustang that he's raced in the Elan. Well, the guys that own that, Rob and David Fenn, they also own a Lotus 6E. We were talking about my Lotus history, which has been modified beyond belief. And David, who's the dad, said, maybe we'll drag you out of retirement and get you to have a go. So there's a chance I might have a go at that, and maybe even share the car with Jake at some point, which would be fun.
Yeah, that would be incredible. I was going to ask actually, you both, what's been your favourite car to drive? Because you've both driven some incredible pieces of machinery, really. Or is it too tough to pick a favourite?
Go on, Dad. You go first.
Well, okay, when I was, I got into the media side of things after I stopped racing, and so then some commentating with Motors TV and ITV Sport, and then on to Eurosport and various other people. And occasionally, as a result of that, I got to drive some pretty cool cars doing a sort of a track test type thing. And of that, my highlight is I've always been a massive fan of Le Mans, and it was always, what I'd love to have done as a driver. Got quite close a couple of times. It never quite happened. And actually, one of the touring car drivers this year, Glyn Geddy, his dad, Jim, is a good friend of mine, and he's another person who's very supportive of Jake in his early career, helped him out a little bit. And Jim had a couple of really cool cars. And what he did have was a Porsche RSR GT2 Le Mans car, which was one of the cars I'd always wanted to drive. And just out of the blue, one day he said, come and have a go. We're at Brands Hatch. So I got to do, I think it was about 10 laps in this thing, which was mind-blowingly quick, and loved every second of it. So that was probably my highlight of driving that. And then I also drove a Formula 3 car many years ago for a team called Bova Motorsport, which was great fun. So they're probably the two coolest things I've driven. But Jake's list is a little bit longer than mine, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, Louis, I mean, Christ, I mean, luckily the last 3 or 4 years, the list has been unreal of cars I've managed to drive. And for me personally, it's tough, but I think it has to be the Calsonic Skyline R32 Group A car that Rick Wood runs and prepares, just because I love the Japanese motorsport history, and specifically Nissan stuff, and the Calsonic name, livery, skylines, for me, that is the pinnacle, and it's such an iconic livery and car. And I actually have an R32 as a road car. So for me, getting to drive the full Group A race version was just out of this world. It is everything I wanted and more. But at the same time, that's one end of the spectrum. At the other end, some of the Le Mans cars I'm now getting to drive, and especially one of the cars that I will be getting to drive very soon. You know, they're just amazing bits of kit. You know, they're fantastic. Again, those are the cars I grew up watching when me and Dad would watch Le Mans 24 hours, and you know they'd be on, and I'm getting a chance to drive this now. So the Lola B2K40 is an LMP2 car that I've done a lot with recently, with the owner Simon Watts and with John Danby Racing, who runs it. And then in the not too distant future, we will be driving, or I'll be getting to do a lot of testing with a Panos LMP1 car, 2002 Roadster. So that I'm sure will become possibly top of my list, I think, once we've got it set up right. So that won't be long. That's probably about 3 to 4 weeks away now from us being able to drive it. And I think that will probably top the list.
Can I just interrupt there? Sorry, Louis, just to one observation. The most excited that I ever heard Jake on the phone was when a couple of years ago,
I forgot about this.
I mentioned, I can't believe you've forgotten this.
I forgot it.
That David and Rob Fenn were giving him some runs in the Mustang and the Elan, but as a team, they all went out to Guadix in Spain to do some winter testing. And there's another guy called Paul White who's got an amazing collection. And there was a certain Le Mans car that Jake got a few laps in, which I think that's got to be up there, isn't it? Tell Louis about that one.
Yeah, do you know what? Probably just because I haven't driven it recently, it just cast over my mind. But it's AMR1, which is a 1991 Group C car.
1990.
89-90 Group C car. And, you know, for me, the pinnacle of Le Mans history is Group C. You know, the Silk Cut, the Sauber C9s, Nissan R89Cs, all that type of stuff, you know. And of that list is the thunder that is AMR1, the Aston Martin. And Paul White, who I've done quite a bit of racing with, actually, with his GT2 car, he offered me some very rare laps in it at Guadix when we were shaking it down. And my God, that was the most exciting I think I've ever been. I can't believe I forgot it. But that and the Calsonic Skyline have to be my two favourite cars I've driven.
Oh, it's incredible. And, you know, they're amazing cars. I think I've always preferred retro cars a bit more than modern cars. I think there's always been, you know, my friends that are like, you know, preferred Ferraris or whatever. And, you know, I'd jump in I love the 80s touring cars. And
Louis, have you been to any historic rounds?
I haven't. The Goodwood revival is definitely on my bucket list. I would love to go one day. You know, I always watch it on my telly, and on, you know, various live streams and stuff. But, you know, when, you know, everyone's dressed up and stuff, I think that looks amazing. And, you know, it's certainly on the bucket list still. So,
you must do it. You know, it was all, I was of a similar opinion, you know, that I really appreciated historic cars before I started driving and racing them. And then I went to the revival and I went to a couple of Masters rounds just to watch and stuff like that, and hooked. You know, it totally turns I remember coming in 2018, it was the first time actually, 17 or 18, we went to the revival. Me and my girlfriend Hannah and her family, we went because they live quite locally. And I remember walking through the gate and just up to the bank where the chicane is there at Goodwood.
Yeah.
And the noise that was coming from I think it was the pre-66 GTs that are out. So the Cobras, 250 Ferraris, E-types, all that type of stuff. The noise that was coming from it just sends tingles down your spine before you've even seen it. So you must go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, Simon mentioned a little while ago, you know, he got some opportunities to drive some very nice cars because of his media stuff. You know, you've done, you know, some commentary yourself. Was that always an aim for you, or how did that come about, really?
Well, so for me, it was a little bit out fortuitously. So there used to be a channel called Motors TV, which was, as the name suggests, just purely motorsport. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who'll be watching this will remember it fondly and miss it fondly as well, because it was tremendous volume and variety. And they had an agreement to show the support races live of the British touring cars at the time. Now, obviously, we're all used to seeing ITV Sport cover all of the racing all day on one channel. But this was sort of the early 2003, and they showed the touring cars on ITV, but all the support races were still live, but on motor, so it sort of flipped between the channels. And when I was racing, I also used to do a lot of instructing, as Jake does now. I'm instructed at the racing school at Brands Hatch, and one of the senior instructors at the time was Ben Edwards, who obviously has subsequently gone on to become, arguably, I'm very biased because Ben's a good friend, but probably the best commentator in the business after the late great Murray, who's obviously everyone's hero. And interestingly, Ben wrote a wonderful tribute to him in this month's Motorsport magazine, which is worth a look if anyone's not seen it. It's brilliant. But anyway, so Ben was commentating on all the races all day, pretty much on his own, and he was getting pretty flabbergasted with it. Now, I hadn't long stopped racing in the support races, and I was involved with coaching and stuff in some of the other drivers. And Ben just said, look, if there's any chance you could come along and give me a hand, you know a lot of the drivers, you know the formula, you've raced on all the tracks, see how it goes. And the very first race I commentated on was a Formula Renault race at Silverstone in 2003, and it was won by a certain Lewis Hamilton. Really? So that wasn't a bad place to start. And he was driving for Manor Motorsport, which was obviously eventually became Manor Formula One. And then, it's just sort of evolved from there. I did that, and I got involved in doing Eurosport. Jake mentioned going to Le Mans. We went to Le Mans together, and I commentated there as part of the live TV crew for Eurosport in 2008 and 2009. And then one of my most enjoyable jobs was the A1GP series, which ran from 2005 to 2009. I did the first 3 years, two of those. One first year as pace car driver, which was great fun, driving some awesome tracks like Laguna Seca and places like that. And then the next couple of years was pit lane reporter, working with Lee McKenzie, who most people will know from the Channel 4 F1 coverage, amongst other things. And subsequently did all sorts of bits and pieces. I was lucky enough to do some GP2, GP3, Porsche Super Cup, as I said, Le Mans, and a real variety. And it was only really when Jake got into touring cars full time that I stepped away from it, but because it was a bit of a difficult balancing act. But I still did some other things away from that, and it was great fun. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Now focusing a little bit more on making sure that we're looking after all of the Jake's partners over a race weekend. So a bit of a change, but great fun nevertheless.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned Jake getting to British touring cars. Obviously, we said earlier how, most drivers do now, you started in the Ginetta Junior Championship. Was the aim always to get to British touring cars?
It was, to be honest. Yes. My ultimate goal, and that still hasn't changed, is I still would absolutely love to do Le Mans 24 Hours. That has always been the race that I have to do. I just have to do it at some point. All the other races are really cool. There's other ones I'd love to do, like Nürburgring 24, stuff like that. But touring cars was a possible realistic aim. It's not like I'm asking to do Formula One. It is possible, but nonetheless, it was extremely hard. Christ, we only just made it there, to be honest. And, there was a couple of dips along the way that, might have seen me drop out of it completely forever and not even return to racing, full stop. But it was the aim, I was unsure which way we were going to go at one point. In 2015, I actually did a year of British GT for AMD Tuning with Sean Hollenby with a Porsche 997, which was a cup car then, a Carrera Cup car, basically turned into a GT4 car. So, I was unsure. That could have taken me down the GT route completely and then possibly onto the Le Mans stuff if that had gone that way. But then a deal came about, actually, thanks to Team Hard, really. They did, regardless of us parting ways a couple of years later, they did do us a great deal to get into touring cars initially. And that's what got the ball rolling, and a massive thanks to, at the same time, to all my sponsors and partners I had at the time to make it all happen. And I managed to just prove my worth in touring cars, I think. And then from there, obviously, we went on to we still are going on to do some good things with it. But My Ginetta Junior days were probably my fondest of my racing career so far. It was pure fun, lots of success, and it's where I honed my skills, to be honest. You know, it's even still to this day, you know, I jump in a Ginetta Junior quite often because I coach for Assetto Motorsport now. And I'm in a junior probably, you know, once or twice every couple of weeks. So, and I still haven't forgotten it, you know, not one bit. I can still jump in and go quicker than all the current junior drivers now, which is good fun. Also get to put them back in their place every now and then, which is nice. They get a bit big for their boots, especially Jamie Osborne, if you're listening. So yeah, it's really good fun, and I love my junior career and everything I did coming up through it as well. Drove some cool cars, G55s, G50, the first gen 991 Carrera Cup car, and then obviously British GT, and then into touring cars. So yeah, lots of cool stuff driven along the way. But yeah, very, very proud to have made it there, and hopefully at some point we'll be able to win some more races and have a good championship fight.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it must be so rewarding for you guys to get to British Touring Cars, to, you know, get on the podium. You know, you've had a very successful time so far, you know, a race win. And, you know, I'm sure, like you said, there's more to come, especially with this year, you know, with the fantastic new Ford Focus.
Yeah, let's hope so, Louis. You know, I'm you know, absolutely thrilled to be with Motorbase and with the new Focus, and you know, I'm sure we'll get it working just great, you know, and it will give me the best chance I think I've ever had at having a good championship fight at least. So yeah, really exciting times.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's only a few minutes left on the meeting. I won't keep you for too much longer. Obviously, with, you know, the new season up and coming, would you say you guys have got an aim?
For me, yes, I have an aim. That is to become British Touring Car champion. You know, there is no hiding that fact. You know, it was a maybe last year. We had a great package, but obviously our engine issues in the early few races, you know, let all that slide, unfortunately. So if the reliability goes our way and we keep ourselves out of trouble, I'm hopeful that we'll be quick enough to put up a good fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you both so very much. I've had so much fun making this interview. So, you know, I wish you both the best for this season. And yeah, have a great season. And yeah, hopefully, you know, see you trackside. And you know, we've not got too long to wait now. So, I wish you the best of luck and thank you.
Thank you very much, Louis. Thank you for having us.
No worries. Thanks, Louis. And you're doing a fantastic job, young man. Keep it up. We're all very impressed.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Well, really, it's been brilliant to talk, and yeah, hopefully see you soon.
Yeah, hopefully see you at a touring car round soon, and obviously, yeah, make sure you come and say hello, and we'll show you around the car.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Well, thank you again, and yeah, all the best.
Thank you. Cheers, Louis.
Thanks, Louis. Cheers. Bye bye.